Okay, so we're going to first import data into the data model, and we're going to include more than just these three tables. All right, so go to manage, and then we're going to access database. Okay, you should have this file already from Blackboard. There it is. Okay, and click next. Now we're going to select from the list of tables in the data view, and here are the list of tables available in this database. So let's say we're going to bring in the customer, geography, product, category, subcategory, sales territory. I don't know whether we need promotion, but let it be there. And fact sales. There is one fact table, which is the sales transactions, and then the rest of them are dimension tables. Dimension tables are also called the lookup tables. All right, so now we have success. That is, all the tables have been brought in, and we can bring in the budget table if needed later on. We'll do that later. So right now, before we get into what is called DAX functions, okay, DAX function refers to data analysis expressions, DAX. Okay, why they call it that, I don't know, but that's what it's known as, DAX functions. But before we get to that, we're going to look at something that we already did with tables. Okay, so there are two kinds of, like in Tableau 2, we had a calculated field and then a calculated measure. So one you could do in the database, one you do in the visualization. So like that here, we have two kinds of computations that we can perform from the data table. So one is called create calculated columns. So calculated columns are, here is your database or data, and you can go to any data sheet. So let's go to fact table. That's our sales transactions. So internet sales transactions, and we have each row representing an order number and an order line, sales order line number, and then a product, and the product for which we have unit or order quantity, unit price, extended amount. Then if you keep going, you see that there is sales amount, so that's the amount of sales in dollars, and then we have cost of total product cost, and then we have tax, freight. Okay, so these are the actual factual data that is available for each row, and the transaction type, we'll be using transaction type later on. So for each transaction, what is the type of the transaction? And then at the end, we have add column. And this is where we can add calculated columns into the data model. Okay, so these calculated columns will stay with that particular sheet. Wherever we create the data column, the calculated column, whichever sheet that we created in, and that's the sheet to which it will be attached. It will be there in that sheet only. Okay, but you can use it in other in pivot tables. We'll get to that later. And it is static, meaning that it is fixed to this this table. So you can start typing with an equal to sign, and like in Excel, you can point and click. So for example, suppose we want to compute margin, and we want to compute the margin as sales amount minus product cost. Okay, so you can type equal to, and you can start typing the if you know what the approximate name of the column is, and if you start typing, you will get the closest field names prompted. Now you can select from that. So here you see that the field names are first, the field names start with the table in which the field is present, and then a square bracket within left and right square brackets, you have the column name itself. Okay. So click that, then you have that column selected. Minus, if you start typing product, so then you have total product cost, so which is right here. Okay, so now we have it. Okay, and click enter. Now the entire column gets populated with that formula. Okay. But you cannot have a different formula for some selected cells. So whatever you enter, and you can enter it in any cell you want, it will get populated the entire way. Okay. So now you can rename this by simply double clicking and giving it a name. So let's say we want to call it margin. Okay. So now we have margin, and you'll notice that there is a difference in the background color. Okay, so this is slightly darker background color. See that? And that shows that it is a calculated column. It's not an original data column from the data source. And also you will find that the column name, the background for the column name is different. Okay, that also tells us that this is a calculated field. And we can calculate, so there is one more column that we want to calculate. Suppose we say we want margin percentage. So see, we start with an equal to sign and click the margin column. So this is, in the previous example, I showed you how to type the name and select from the prompted list. Here, another way to construct these calculated columns is to point and click. So you point margin divided by sales amount, which is right there. So that will give you the percentage. Now click enter, and again the entire column will get populated. Okay. Double click and change it to margin PCT, stand for percentage. Now Excel, this data model, this is the DAX model, it has lots of functions like in Excel. So in Excel you have the average function and whatever, that's a whole bunch of functions available, right? So the same functions will work in DAX also, and they have the same field, same results, same everything. So suppose we want the month of the order date. So you say MONT. So as you type, it prompts you for that function here. This FX represents that it is a function. Okay. So month, and if you select the order date, I can find the order date. So there it is. Order date. Of course, I could have started typing and DAX would have prompted me for it. So now I have the month. Let's call this month number. Right. And we can use the year function an order day right there. Okay. And let's call this just here. Okay. So this is how you will create additional calculated columns in DAX. Okay. There are a couple. It works very much like the table, but the Excel table that we looked at, previously. But there are some small differences. One is, okay, there are no cell reference type of formulas. Like you cannot do A1 times B3 or something like that. So it has to be the entire column having the same formula. The results are calculated for each row and stored with the Excel file. Okay, so it is static. Every number here is already calculated and stored in the data file, as opposed to what we're going to be looking at, which are called measures, that would be different. Okay, and on the data columns, we'll have the convention of table name and then the column name in square brackets. If the column name is in the same table, then you can ignore the table name in front of it. Okay, just simply put the column name in square brackets. That would mean that the column comes from the same table, like where you are creating the calculated field.